In this lesson, we'll be learning about data types in Dart. It is another core concept of Dart that we need to understand. So navigate into dartpad.dev, clear all the content so we can start from the scratch. In previous lesson, we learned how we can create a variable in Dart. So by using the var keyword, let's create a variable. So var cost of book equals to 1000. Now when you are creating a variable name, make sure that you do not use any special characters in variable name. So while naming a function or a variable, make sure you are not using special characters like space, question mark, semicolon, and so on, right? And in Dart, it is recommended that you use camel case for functions and variables. Camel case meaning that some of the words will be of lowercase and the starting of some words will be of uppercase. So in this variable, you can see that cost is of lowercase and this of is another word. So O is of uppercase and then this book is of uppercase. This is called a camel case in programming language. Now if you look at this cost of book variable closely, you can see that this value of cost of book is a number, right? So instead of using this bar, we can simply use number. And the reason for us using the nom keyword instead of var keyword is that Dart have different types of data types, and it is always a good practice to use the correct data types for your variable. Not only it is a good practice, it will help us write our code faster, because when you are using an IDE like Visual Studio Code and developing a real app, our IDE will provide suggestion based on those data types. And by providing the correct data type, we are less likely to make type error when we are handling a large project. Now how can a type error occur? I'll show you that shortly. So first let's look at the data types that Flutter can provide us. The first one being the nom. Nom will hold the data for the numbers. This nom can also be split into integer and double. Say int int age. This will hold a number like a simple number without any decimals. If you want decimal, then you can use double. And the commonly used data type is an string. So string, let's use camel case in this. So this is of string type. In most programming languages, this string will be surrounded by quotes. Another commonly used type is a boolean type. So bool, which stands for boolean, and this boolean will hold the data for either true or false. So is logged in can be either true or it can be false, but it will not hold any data except true and false, right? So these are commonly used. Another commonly used data type is a dynamic data type. This dynamic data type can hold any type of data, say dummy. It can be either a number, it can be a string, it can be true and false, a boolean, and everything. This dynamic will hold basically any type of data. It's basically like using a var keyword, and by using dynamic we cannot leverage the full benefit of type check. So we will not be using this data type. Instead we will be using the appropriate data types in our Dart code. Now there are two other important data types in Dart, list and map, but I will not be explaining this in this lesson because they are a little bit complex than these primitive types of data, right? And I will be explaining that in our lessons to come. Now let me show you what are the advantages of using these data types in Dart and how type check works. So let me clear this all and let me create a function. So let's create a main entry point for our code, and inside of this will be our logic. Let me create another function as well. So this will be an adder function, and this adder function will expect two arguments a and b, and inside of this there will be a calculation. So var sum equals to a plus b, and then we'll be printing sum over here, right? And now we'll be calling this adder function from here. So if I run this code, I'll get a response of 2. But as we learned earlier, instead of just passing the variable name over here, we can wrap this with curly braces and we can use the name over here in the function we are calling. So our code becomes more readable, right? This is basically what we had learned in the previous lesson. Now what if instead of passing a number in the a variable, I pass an string? So if I execute this code, I'll be getting an type error, meaning that my code is trying to add two variables, but one of those variable is an string, and string and number cannot be added. So this resulted in crash of our app, right? So how can we prevent this type error from occurring? So the best way for this to do is to leverage the full capacity of type checker of Dart. And how can we do so? Is by providing the data type of variables. So let me show you how this can be done. So now instead of writing the string, let me provide a number over here so that everything runs fine, right? Now, instead of just declaring the variable name over here, we will be providing the data type for that variable. So A is of data type number. So right before this A, we will be writing number and then space and the variable name. And as it is required for the computation, we will be writing the required keyword in front of this data type. So required number A. And we will do the same for B. Required number B. Now our adder function will only accept the arguments if A is of number and B is of number. Now if I press it run, then everything will execute just fine, right? Now let me try changing this to an string. Now as I am typing this string in my A value, I have already got an error before even running my code. So this error that was triggered is called an type check error, and this type check error is triggered by my editor as I was typing the wrong arguments, right? I did not have to wait for my code to compile and to see the error. I got the error as I was typing, and now I can catch all the errors as I type and I can fix them so that my app do not have to crash in the future, right? So this data check is one of the most important features of Dart. So we need to leverage that by using the correct data types. Now in the next lesson, we will be learning about return types in Dart. I'll see you there.